So the job report is out today, and Donald Trump is not happy. The last time the job report came out and showed that the country isn't producing jobs, Donald Trump fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics chair as if the person reading the data is responsible for the numbers and not his own chaotic policy. So let's go through them, shall we? If you're interested, share this video with someone who's a MAGA supporter who is making up all sorts of excuses rather than blame the inept man that they voted for into office. All right. So when you first get into office, the first thing you do is decide to shrink the federal workforce. When you shrink the federal workforce, that's less people earning money. That's less money going into the economy. That is essentially less jobs. So when you see the you fired a lot of people. You're contributing to these numbers. And when they get fired, they essentially swell the applicant pool. So there's more people looking for jobs than jobs available. This calculus, this animus didn't appear to you or any of the Project 2025 people who were so anti-federal government. Did you think there were that many MAGAs qualified to replace? No wonder they're lowering the standards across for FBI agents, for ICE agents, for everything else but it's not going to work. They're not enough. They can't fill those jobs. They can't. Just like when someone, a MAGA right winger, said that in order to make the pool of citizens that in grand juries in those blue cities, that the MAGA people should move to the blue cities. People in blue cities can't afford the blue cities. I know the MAGA people from the South cannot afford to live in these blue cities. That's not a good plan. Anyway. So that's the first reason. Now let's go to the second reason. Okay, tourism is a big driver for the United States. You're talking about amusement parks, hotels, restaurants, travel destinations, entertainment, especially for red states like Texas, which is tourism number one, and Florida, tourism is number one. So your policies create a hostile environment for international visitors. You are deporting people from their countries. You have these visa restrictions. You're stopping people at the border and turning them back around. You have very hateful rhetoric, anti anyone of color, anti anyone who's not white, cis American. The message you're sending is clear. America's not welcoming. You get fewer tourists. You're going to get which means empty ballrooms, which means fewer diners in restaurants, which means lost jobs to the hospitality sector. And you want to blame the Bureau of Labor Statistics chair for the poor job numbers. Dude, let's get to the third one. So let's talk about you deploying the National Guard to cities like Washington, D.C. that depend on nightlife and tourism and dining. Here you have when people want to go out and you flood the streets with military presence. They don't want to go out. They want to stay home. So what's the impact of that? Restaurants lose their revenues. Shops close early. That's just another self-inflicted wound on the job market caused by you, not the Bureau of Labor Statistics chief. You did this. Okay, and everything. Markets thrive on stability, on predictability, on just knowing what's next. Your policies are the exact opposite. They're chaotic, they're unpredictable, and you flip the switch. We call it taco for a reason. Like you'll announce a tariff policy on day one, and 2 days later, you reverse it. And what that does is causes business to be confused. Businesses need to be able to plan the future. Companies need to know what the landscape is going to look like. And so with your policies flip-flopping, going back and forth, they're just going to freeze hiring. They're going to be like, we're just going to wait this out. So that's because of you, not the Bureau of Labor Statistics chair, who you fired for no damn reason. Then you get to the part where you are freezing grants to universities and various different entities, nonprofits, groups. All of those grants and contracts, they also equal hiring people. They create jobs for the researchers, for the assistants, for the state, the local communities, the local economies around those schools. And so when you're redirecting money and freezing grants that were already allocated by Congress to these institutions, to these organizations, which is unconstitutional, by the way, what you're essentially doing is creating fewer jobs in the communities across the country. And that's your doing, Donald Trump, not the Bureau of Labor Statistics chair. That's you did that. You alone. So 6, the bigger picture is essentially your whole policy is based on culture wars. And that's You can't run and govern the country based on ideology. I mean, many presidents before you, even yourself, knew that there's certain stability, there's certain things that are going to happen. Discourse is going to happen. You're going to have people that disagree with you, but for the most part, that just exists. That can exist, and you can still run the country. So, your economic plans, you're punishing federal workers, you're stripping fundings from institutions you just don't like or you call woke. And so you're making decisions based on ideology. And that's just utterly stupid. I just read a report that says that the Homeland Security is going to pause going after child traffickers and all sorts of bad guys just to focus on immigration. That's it. You put mass deportation down. Pam Bondi has a list of things the Department of Justice handles. She closed out the Civil Rights Office, and she's just doing immigration. It's all immigration all the time, 100%. That is not the sole issue that people are worried about. And so when you just focus on that, the rest of the country goes by the wayside, and you have these terrible job numbers because you cannot govern for shit. You just ideologue, you're just grifting, you don't know what you're doing, you're flip-flopping, you're curmudgeon, you put a bunch of inept people in office who don't know what they're doing, unqualified, like goons who not quite sure what they're doing. Pete Hegseth, I just heard, sent some bomber jets to, talk about gang. You're trying to stop drugs. If you try to stop a drug boat, instead of you bombing or killing those 11 people, you actually pull them over, you arrest them, you try them, and then you put them in jail. You don't just kill people. That's an international crime. What's her face? Linda McMahon didn't know what the IDEA program was, which is the hallmark program of Department of Education. Instead of AI, she called it A1. Tulsi Gabbard is outing agents because she just didn't know, so they say. And you have Christy Nome didn't know what habeas corpus is. Stephen Miller just is running rumshop of this Constitution. So that's the reason why your job numbers are bad, Donald. So let's wrap this up. So you inherited a really good economy from Joe Biden that was going up. The employment numbers are going up. Inflation was getting better. We had month-over-month job growth for the longest time, right? Same thing with Donald Trump. With Joe Biden. Something with Barack Obama. You inherited from Barack Obama an economy that was rising. So at least your first term, you knew better than just to go in and just wreck it and just do all sorts of crazy things. You let it coast. Because you let it coast, when people voted for you this time, they remember the good times they had those first 2 years. When essentially those first 2 years of your presidency before COVID sort of, did its thing, was Barack Obama's growth and growing economy that they were benefiting from, and they were giving you credit for it. So you had the opportunity to get credit for the economy that Joe Biden handed you. But no, you decided instead you're smart. You're going to do tariffs, which is really just make inflation worse. The instability of your policies just driving the stock market crazy. And the bad job numbers, you can't be fooled. They're because of your policies. They kill stability. You're punishing workers. You're freezing opportunities. And that's why things are coming out the way they are coming out. And it was unforced errors after the other. So anyway, the headlines don't always tell the whole story. I'm going to do that for you. This is not what I normally do. I'm JJ Legal. I am the dockets. I usually try to stick with legal, and I share the different legal cases and the decisions in the courts, lawsuits filed against the Trump administration, and then lawsuits that the Trump administration itself files. So that's what I usually do. Once in a while, I'm going to dabble into things like this economy, which is just not really my thing. But I have a journalism degree, a couple of law degrees, and policy wonk, and I've been in the trenches for a while. So, it's really bad. Anyway, so that's what I have for you today. It's a little bit different. Let me know, what do you think? Let's start. And let's talk about this. I'm going to add this to the topics I'm going to talk about. I am going to go live, I promise, next week for members of my membership community only, so they can see my flubs. And so if you're interested, if you're not a member of the membership community or Patreon or Substack or TikTok, go join, because only there will you get the link or access to the live, JJ Live, unscripted office hours. We're just talking shop, nothing planned. Q&A if you want to ask questions, just me chopping shop. So, all right. Otherwise, watch this on YouTube. I'm going to put a playlist here for you to watch and binge more content.